I think there have been a few movies made using some of the facades of the building and so forth over time. John Bradley can probably tell you a lot more about that than I remember myself. It's a real pleasure to see the town begin to continue the effort, and it's, I think, effort well spent. Now there was some outside Donnelly Printing, for example, when we were trying to get on the Main Street program, we had to raise enough money to have a Greater Gallatin office. And so I sat down with Ann. At that time I was very involved with the chamber, and we sat down with different people in business and other endeavors in Gallatin. And Gallatin raised the most money of the 5 towns, or had about $30,000 we raised in 30 days. We didn't have long to do it. And we got those people together, and I remember Donnelly Printing was one of the big backers of our effort. Even though they weren't on the square itself, they realized the importance of a town, being vibrant.
And that, indirectly also, played a big part in our airport being able to expand the way it has, because there'll be corporate people from Connolly out of Chicago or wherever, and they need a place to fly in. And then also the hotel industry, they need a place to stay. So, that really helped spur those movements to get things happening, because there wasn't too many places, that they could stay, and our runway at the time, you could land the plane, but it was too short to take off, So some of the bigger planes, they could land, but they couldn't take off. So they had to expand to accommodate the larger planes and some of the jets and things that these corporate people were coming in on.
Sure.
So that helped that movement quite a bit, getting that going, and it's still probably slowly expanding constantly. Probably needs to.
Well, that's the way Middle Tennessee.
It's just going to have to accommodate the needs.
But I'm glad to see 109 finally getting the bridge in, and it's got still a lot of work to do, but it's been something that we've been working on for over 40 years to try to get solve some of the traffic problems. Because can you imagine all the traffic on 109 coming down North Water and and South Water to try to get through town? It would be almost
that was something
impossible.
Really needed. We just came over that Sunday. We came over the bridge Sunday. It is, yes, it is.
And there were a few people like Walter Durham and Ted Kelly, Mayor Kelly at the time when we were doing this effort that gave us support. John Garrett was also someone that I looked up to, knowing how he was involved with the history of Summertown and things that were going on. And it was good to see these people realize that Gallatin needed, to preserve its history and to continue to grow in a positive way. We made an effort to keep the courthouse in the square area, possibly putting it where the Genesco building was. That failed due to the influence of Hendersonville. Wanted it on the other side of the tracks. They didn't want to have to cross the railroad tracks to get to the courthouse. So they went out to Belvedere, and that was one thing that diminished some of the traffic on the square, because when people came in to do their court business, they would come in, and of course now we have the courts here still, but when I first got involved in retail in Gallatin, the jail, the sheriff's office, the courts, and all the offices were in this one building. So we had the sheriff's office in the basement.
Yeah.
The jail was up
down the steps.
The
down
jail
there.
was up
on top.
on top.
Yeah.
And the courts were in between, and then you had the offices on some of the floors in between. Of course, you only had a couple of courtrooms at that time.
Yeah. We totally outgrown them for sure.
Judge Pereira was one of the judges. Then, of course, later on there was Judge Goodall, and progression of people, Judge Rogers now, different ones that have continued the courts here on the square. And of course, the closing of industry up here did affect things to some degree. One of the things, though, that we noticed as things changed, the banks moved, away from the square and went to National Pike. And so that also affected things because people would come into the square to do their banking. We had McDonald's bookstore on the south side of the square, and then we carried jewelry and books, and of course Blues Jewelry and Roth's had three really nice jewelry stores here on the square.
Remember the jewelry store on this side of the square?
That's McDonald's.
Remember
They
the
call it
man?
Gallatin.
The man would sit right up in the front window, just like we are right here, and you'd be working on something, and of course we would be on the other side of the glass, we'd be watching it, and I mean very intricate, whatever it was he was working on.
It was watches or clocks.
And, yeah, he was, we're just like, wow, there's a lot of moving parts to that, and very delicate kind of stuff. But,
Sure.
But he would spend hours there, just working, and had this little goggles where he could see up close, and
Sure.
it was just fascinating to watch him work.
Right.
But that was kind of neat. And of course, my mom was right next door there at J.J. Newberry's, so we pretty well lived on the square, selling papers, and just Saturdays. Charlie Copeland always went to the Palace, and then from there went right back to Newberry's and maybe get some ice cream or something.
Yeah.
And,
Well, you laugh and tell people that at that time a major part of my life was within 3 blocks of the courthouse,
yeah.
the church, the business. All of the different things that you did were right there.
Yeah.
And of course, we had groceries up here on the square.
Yeah, there's
as well.
A&P, kind of like right across from J.C. Penney right along in there somewhere. What are they, A&P?
A&P actually
and then they moved down here.
Now, they were up here
For a little while, and then it was the Ford dealership.
Kroger.
Was it Wave Motors that was uptown?
Well, there was
And then they moved out to where Miracle Ford is now.
There were several auto places. You had Balch Motor Company
Yeah, down
on Northwater, and that was the Plymouth
Yes.
Dodge dealership. You had Baker Motor Company up here on West Main. That was before they moved out on Nashville Pike.
Now,
And-
Boggs moved to out there across from Gill School later.
Yes, they moved.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
And Dick Jenkins was down here.
Dick Jenkins was
by
down
Dairy Queen.
West Main.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember they had a big fire there one time in the body shop. And man, they were, of course, we always sold papers to Mr. Dick Jenkins, he was a super nice guy. And man, I mean, we had just been there. I mean, we had just been there, and you hear all the commotion, the sirens and all this stuff. And they were scrambling trying to get all the vehicles out of there that would run.
Right.